Okay, and how long do we have? We're at like an hour.
It goes till 1:30, but we like to leave plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And since this is the first meeting of the quarter, I have some administrative stuff to deal with first. So my name is Jennifer Dill. I'm a faculty member in Urban Studies and Planning. And along with Rob Bertini, who I hear is in Klamath Falls today, we help co-organize this seminar, which is also a class in both USP and civil engineering. And a few of you are our students, and you are the intended audience for the next few minutes. I have the syllabus here, which I'm going to pass around. It's the same syllabus for both USP and CE. Let me keep one. If you've taken the class before, it's the same syllabus, basically, just the deadline has changed. If you're new, I want to alert you to a couple things. Make sure you look at both sides. I've had people forget to turn it over, and that's where the written assignment is, and then they get to the end of the quarter and didn't realize that there is a written assignment if you are taking this for a grade. As a student, the key things that you need to keep in mind is that you are expected to ask a question each week, and hopefully you can actually ask that question of the speaker verbally and get an answer, and then if I know who you are, I'll mark you down. But either way, if you don't get to, you need to write down that question and hand it in to me after the fact as a record-keeping business. So ask the question every week. And then the written assignment, most of the students seem to be doing the reflective journal option. And that is described on the back. If you want to talk to me more about how that works, we can do that later. But I think all the pertinent information is here. If you are in the MERP program, you should be taking this for a grade and not pass, no pass, by the way. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our speaker, who is Susan Lee, who is currently a candidate for a Ph.D. in public administration here within the college and working on a dissertation looking at regional transportation planning. She has previously done a number of things in the region, including working for the county, Multnomah County and Metro in the area of transportation and transportation finance, and she's currently at FHWA working with their value pricing program. Prior to that, FHWA worked on some air quality issues. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to talk about the value pricing program. Oh, I'm going to turn in the hand. This is for the students to sign in for attendance. If you're not listed on here, write yourself down. I'm forgetting one more thing. If you ask a question, you need to use this microphone in front of you so the people watching on the web can hear your question, and you need to keep the red light on as you're speaking. Thank you.
Just to check in, how many of you are at all familiar with the value pricing program at Federal Highways? Okay. All right. Well, I'll back up a little then. The value pricing program was first authorized in I15, which was passed in 1991. Are you familiar with I15? Okay. All right. We'll start there. And it was called the Congestion Pricing Program. And in that, they looked at basically 3 test cases. And what congestion pricing is looking at pricing highways as a means to control or manage congestion. So that's kind of the background of the program. And then with reauthorization of T21, they renamed the program value pricing and expanded it. So what I am going to do today is talk about the projects in the pilot program, and probably focus a little bit on what we've learned from some of the operational projects that we have underway, largely we've done a lot of studies, and that is really the focus of the program, but we do have several projects that are in operation, 8 total, and about 43 total projects or studies that we've done. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that have come up and why some of the projects have been stalled, and then and what we've learned from that and what we can do to overcome some of those barriers, and then I can take questions from folks. So with that, I'll move forward here. Too many papers going here. All right. So pricing, just generally in the United States, mostly we have looked at pricing lanes, either new or existing lanes on freeways, and then we've also looked at variable tolls on toll facilities, again to manage congestion. Abroad, you've probably heard about cordon tolls. The experience in London more recently is brought attention to pricing, and then they've also had more experience with truck tolls in the international experience. Might mention too, prior to I-15 and T21, the use of tolls in the United States on the freeway system was very, very limited application. You could do them on some bridges for construction, and in fact, and to bring it locally, the Astoria Bridge crossing the Columbia River, that was originally built, or not originally, but the facility that exists there was built with tolls, and then once the facility or the debt to build the facility was repaid, then the toll came off. There's also some other limited applications that prior to I-15 in this program where you could do some limited tolling. And then private roads, of course, non-freeways, there's opportunity to do that. And many of you may have crossed the Bridge of the Gods on the Columbia River up the gorge, and that's a private facility, and that's why, or a non-freeway facility, and that's why that's allowed to be tolled. So it's not a national or interstate highway facility. Okay. So there's different types of price lanes. Basically, we look at tolls that vary by the level of demand, again, to control congestion. Typically, we look at tolls on either single lanes where you add capacity, or on where you're allowing SOV, single occupant vehicles, to buy into like a HOV lane. That's typically what we've done here in the United States. Or perhaps multiple lanes, where we look at some projects here in a minute where we've done that. Again, the purpose to manage demand on freeways here in the United States, what we've done is to manage the demand on freeways to improve travel time and reliability. We also had the added benefit of reducing emissions in many cases. And the corollary benefit is that there's new revenue. The intent going into this program, that was not the primary purpose. Freeways are extremely expensive to build, particularly in an urban environment. So that has not been the primary focus of this program. It's kind of been a side benefit. Okay. If you have questions, you can interrupt me as I go along. Any questions so far? We can take them at the end, but I'm happy to entertain them as we go along. Okay. The lane pricing alternatives that we have, hot lanes, high occupancy vehicle, or high occupancy toll lanes, basically HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle lanes that allow non-HOV to buy into the lane. So here in the Portland area, you're probably familiar with the HOV lane from on I-5 that operates up northbound to the bridge on I-5 or southbound in Vancouver. There have been complaints that it's frequently not being used. Well, in other areas, they've chosen to allow single occupant, or where they have HOV3, where you have to have 3 occupants or more in the vehicle. They've allowed fewer occupant vehicles to buy up that excess to demand, to buy into those lanes. So that's the high occupancy toll lane concept. So that would be the example of that. Priced express lanes, where any new lanes or existing free roads on toll roads are used for tolling purposes, and they vary from an HOV lane in that you may or may not allow HOV vehicles to be free, or they could be a reduced cost. Truck tollways. There are no cases of truck tollways in the United States currently, but they are being looked at. There's a few places in Middle America where they're considering those, and some on the East Coast where there's some interest in truck tollways. And then fair tollway. This is a new concept that's being promoted by some folks, where you would have tolls on existing lanes with credits for those who are negatively impacted. So in other words, to address the equity issue and concerns. Yeah?
On truck tollways, is that like a tollway specifically for freight vehicles, so they can pay to get around
Correct.
the regular passenger traffic?
Correct. Yes,
And
they'd be dedicated for trucks.
And then where is there any particular place that there's really an interest in that?
There's a few places where there has been expressed interest for that. There's no current studies underway for it, though. But, yeah. So there's no current studies underway for that, but there's been a lot of interest in it, generally speaking. So congestion, impacts freight movement quite a bit, obviously. So, okay. All right. Now we're getting into some of the projects that we have underway. Again, currently we have about eight projects in the United States that are operational. Toll projects that are on, they're on federal or interstate facilities. Examples of converting HOV lanes to high occupancy toll lanes are in San Diego, California, the I15 project. In Houston, Texas, there is the Katy Freeway, and it's actually I-10 and US 290. There's 2 projects there where they have allowed single occupant, and I actually think that there's they have a SOV3 requirement on that facility, so they've allowed lower occupant vehicles to buy into those lanes. A new toll lane facility is Orange County, California, which is SR91. That's kind of a unique project. We'll get into some of the details on that. And then HOV to Hotline. Other examples, again, we talked about the I15 San Diego and the Katy Freeway. This is just a visual depiction of that freeway, so you can see how it looks in operation. The San Diego I15 Hotline, this is an 8-mile project, 2 reversible lanes. The tolls vary dynamically, so it's based on congestion. During the peak, it goes up, and that's to keep the lanes free-flowing and compared to the general purpose lanes. And I can't remember, I can look it up, but it goes up to, I believe, $550 in the highest price. I can't remember between the two. I can look it up. I have the information here if you're really interested in that in a minute. Oh, no, here it is. Up to $4. It's the SR91 that goes to $550. The revenues are $2 million a year, and the tolls fund transit improvements in the corridor. This is Orange County, California. This is SR91. That the tolls are also dynamic. They range from $1 to $5.50, 4 lanes, and it's a 10-mile project. And this one's really a good visual because you can see where on the far right-hand side there, those are the general purpose lanes. They're congested, and the tolled lanes are free-flowing. These projects are close to implementation. The I-10 in Houston, this is already, part of this is implemented. This is an expansion in Houston. I-15 in San Diego, they're extending that. I-25 in Denver, Colorado, the study's complete. They're going to be implementing that. LBJ Freeway in Dallas, Texas is under study. It's further from implementation. I-680 in Alameda County, the study is complete. They're moving forward with some design concepts and some studies, further studies on that. I-394 in Twin Cities is getting very close. Some other lane pricing studies that have been going on. Arizona has done some studies. California is very active. They do a lot of studies going underway at any given time, and moving towards pricing. They do some, there's pricing on the bridges in the Bay Area. Colorado, where I mentioned that one. Florida has some interesting pricing projects. They have a small cordon pricing that's in Fort Myers. They have in the Miami area, there's another pricing project that's getting ready to be implemented. Georgia is looking at pricing. They have they're interested in the Atlanta area. They've got a lot of congestion problems there. Maryland and actually the D.C. metro area. You see Virginia's on there. Several studies underway there. Minnesota we talked about. North Carolina. The state of Oregon is on there, you see, and Washington State as well. Right now in Oregon there's a project. There are several projects that were completed in I-15. They looked at a congestion pricing. Portland Metro has adopted that they have a policy that any added capacity will look at pricing as an option. And right now, I-217 is looking at adding lanes, an HOV lane, I believe. And so 217 is looking at pricing as an option, according to their policy. And there's also a very interesting demonstration going on that's in the beginning stages to look at looking at vehicle miles traveled means of taxation. And that demonstration will probably occur in the Eugene area. We're not sure yet, but that'll be very interesting because, as we know, the gas tax as a means of taxation has some problems with it. It's regressive, and with fuel efficiency improving, the long-term prognosis for that is problematic. So, Texas, lots of projects. And Washington State, they're getting ready to implement tolling on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge that will reopen soon. And they're interested in some projects on some of their HOV lanes, but their legislature didn't approve a project that they were hoping to move forward. So they'll continue to look at those options. Oh, there's your truck toll lane. There's your question there. I wasn't aware where that one was at, so there it is. Okay. Now we're going to look into some of what we've learned from some of the operational projects that have moved forward, some of the lessons. All right. One of the most important things that we've learned that hot lanes have provided choices really for motorists, in that that when you're stuck in congestion, you're just stuck there, and having a tolling option provides a free-flowing option. Most of the revenues that have been generated are really not enough, we found, to fund the roads themselves, but as we noted in several of the cases, they funded transit improvements, really to, one, address the equity concerns, and also to provide an option for the people who are priced out of the lane. But in all the cases, there's still general purpose lanes, so there's still that option. And interestingly enough, public support of the toll lanes has been very high, and I'm going to talk about that in detail here in a minute, among all population groups we've found in the operational projects that we've done. In San Diego, we conducted a very yes. Okay. In San Diego, we conducted a public opinion survey on post implementation and then in preparation for project expansion. Overall, there's 70% approval for the existing hot lanes. There is a 84% hot lane extension approval, provided they integrate bus rapid transit in the project. And when we break it down between high income and low income, you see that the rating is high among both population groups. Yes.
Okay, I tried to ask this sooner, but the I-15 one was previously the privately funded lane that then Caltrans took over, correct?
Right.
So is that when the funding went from maintaining the road to going to public transit?
I-15 was publicly owned.
Yeah, SR 91. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah, we'll cover that in a minute. You're right, though, and we're going to cover that in detail in a minute.
What do you mean by it integrates bus rapid transit?
Bus rapid transit is a form of transit service that that provides a high level of reliability and faster transit service. It's a higher.
You mean that the buses would actually go on the hot lane?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. So. Yes.
On the previous slide, you mentioned that the revenue is not really enough to cover road costs, but it was enough to be used for transit. Can you clarify in what sense was it not enough to cover road costs? Which projects? Or especially in case of the I-15 case where you have an underutilized HOV and you convert to dynamic pricing, it seems like you'd have plenty of revenue being generated. It was already built. So when you say it's not enough to cover road costs, I'm not quite tracking.
I would have to follow up with you on that. We have a report that's coming out soon, and I can share that with you. I mean, I'd have to go through, each and every project, but yeah, I mean, I'd have to follow up with you on that. So. Okay. Okay. Continue on the public opinion survey. We found also, again, in both the high and low income brackets, that both groups thought that it was fair for people to be able to purchase into that lane. So the whole notion of Lexus lanes, both income brackets believed that was fair. And I'm not sure what that means, but we found this was very interesting. That both groups.
Just out of curiosity, when was the public opinion survey done in relation to when the hot lane opened? Like, how far after it was open? Like, did it take a few years for public opinion to kind of come around?
This public opinion survey is fairly recent. Let me see if I can find when that report was done. It's on the website. This document's publicly available, and it's posted to the website for this project. And this is in anticipation of the expansion. So if you want to, we can go through the rest of the presentation, and I can probably pull the citation for it and let you know. Continuing on SR91, what we've learned, again, this is going to get to your question, the other gentleman, here in a minute. This is on the flow of the traffic in the lanes. What we've learned is that as congestion on the regular lanes increases, the vehicle throughput decreases. Now that makes sense. So you're traveling in the general purpose lanes and it gets more congested and the throughput decreases. But hot lanes, because you're pricing them, the throughput is maintained. So what we have seen is basically there's 3 lanes available there, and the 30% of the traffic is carried on is supposed to be carried on those lanes, percent of the capacity. And yeah, my notes on this one. This opened in 1995, and during the peak, the lanes carry 16 to 1,700 vehicles per hour. So that's showing the percent of the capacity, and then actually how many vehicles are going through. So they're carrying more vehicles than expected. Okay, this is going to illustrate it better here. Okay, so the throughput per lane is 1/3 higher, and the speed is 3 to 4 times per higher on the express lanes than on the free lanes, because you're maintaining the flow. So because the flow's going faster, you can get more cars through on the express lanes than the free lanes. Does that make sense? They're going faster, so more cars get through. Okay. All right, continuing on SR91. The toll-paying single-occupant vehicles are saving 20 to 30 minutes relative to the congested lanes because of this faster speed and more cars through. And basically what that means is you have a reliable trip time. So the trade-off between the trade-offs here is that there's discounts or exemptions for the high occupancy vehicles, or reduced revenue. So what we're seeing here is that the reason you have higher revenues on the Orange County project, or SR91, is that they don't have as many exemptions. In other words, that they charge more. They charge more of the vehicles. The San Diego project lets more of the HO vehicles through. Yes. The policy.
Is that what's the time? Is that 1 year, or is that total, or?
That's just the annual revenues for a given year. It's just for illustrative purposes. The policy on the San Diego project is that they allow, I think it's HOV2 gets through free. At the Orange County project, you have to be a HOV 3, and then even HOV3 pays during the peak. That's the difference between the pricing schemes of those two facilities. And so that would get back to your issue, is how much revenue you raise is based on your policy, and it would vary by facility. So depending on what's politically acceptable in your community in terms of, and then how much congestion there is going to depend on how much revenue you can actually raise for the facility. So more congestion, in the regular lanes means you can raise more, more revenue on that facility, and how long your peak is going to depend on how much you can raise in the facility. So you need to price it, according to the demand and the local conditions. if you have free flowing all the time, no one's going to pay to get in that facility. The SR91 is a very congested corridor. There's not a lot of alternatives, and the demand's very high. So they charge, even HOV3 in the peak pays a fee. So that's why that is able to charge more money. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
From a policy standpoint, how do you, if one of the goals is to reduce the demand, and you're pricing lanes but then giving exemptions for HOVs, you're kind of negating the demand reduction strategy of a HOV. So that's like, how do you justify that, or how does that kind of jive? And then I guess that raises a second question: are there any projects where there is like both an HOV and a price lane in the same corridor?
I'm not sure I understand your question. You're giving the HOV, you're allowing them to get in the lane for free, so that's encouraging people to carpool, right? Yeah. And then depending on how congested it is how many people are required to be in the car to get in there for free. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it does work that way.
Yeah, and like I said, in the case of SR91, you have to have, during the peak, you have to have, 4 or more to get in for free. Yeah. So.
I'm not really sure if I've never been to these places, what the entrance to the facilities is like. But if you have a situation where HOV3 is free, is it when they stop, say hi, drive by type of entrances? They know whether you have 3 people or 2 people in your vehicle.
Yeah.
Is it just a electronic one, or is there entrances where everybody stops and looks at a person?
They do it. The enforcement is different in different places. In some places, you enter the facility, and if you're carpool, you go through a particular lane, and it's visual. In some places, most of the places, it's transponder technology, and you have to have a transponder to get in, and you're going through. The technology is vastly different, and enforcement is a huge issue everywhere you go. But so it's a huge issue. But here, they're visually, they're going through, and they have a means to watch for that, and then they issue citations, and they send it to you in the mail. They're able to do that. So they have to, in California, you have to get legislative authority for each and every one of these toll facilities, and you have to have a plan and get it approved. There's also been an issue, more recently with the various technologies. So they're always watching for that. So, and yeah.
I think I can add, a few years ago I visited SR91, and there's actually a booth, at least there was at that point, where someone's sitting there, and the HOVs are supposed to be in a certain lane, and so they visually check, and then they capture the license plate. But I think on I-15, some of that $2 million a year pays for extra CHPs to do enforcement. I don't think they have a booth anywhere.
On which one?
I-15 in San Diego. I'm pretty sure it's just CHP vehicles driving around.
Yeah.
Part of the $2 million goes to fund extra CHP enforcement.
Yeah, I know each one's different, and so yeah, maybe. All right, more on SR91. We found that all income groups were using the price lanes, and as you'd expect, the higher income groups did use it more. And as I noted already, there's some preferential treatment for the HOV3 in terms of during the highest of the peak, they have to pay, but during other times they are able to use it for free. Okay, just some general lessons. On this one, the pricing debt has supported costs for new lanes because they are able to raise a lot more revenue. The managing the peak traffic, you're able to price it dynamically so you can keep it from getting congested. And this is the issue to the gentleman in the back that asked about the non-compete. This project was originally privately funded. They had a non-compete clause, and the revenue generated was not able to pay for improvements on the general purpose lanes. This was a huge issue. It created problems with public perception, and the public bought the facility back. And now the revenues are able to make improvements on the other road and take care of those issues. So it did take care of that. Did that answer your question? So now I'll talk about a little bit about some of the issues that have come up on stalled projects. Generally, there are clearly political issues that have come up. I think we've kind of underrepresented them somewhat in this presentation. There are both geographic and income equity issues that come up. Both in terms of geographic, the commuting patterns, where people need to go, jobs, housing balance, and the income equity issues are pretty, probably don't need a whole lot of explanation. There are claims of induced travel and sprawl creation, claims made with new capacity. However, I think that you could probably make an argument that tolling probably, with tolling, it may be reduced somewhat because you're not going to add the capacity until you actually need it. Whereas when you just add capacity without a tolling scenario, you're just adding it, and you're not managing for congestion. So that remains to be tested, but that's my personal theory on that. It hasn't been tested, so that's not the Federal Highway position. There's been a lot of technical issues. I think that, the technical issues is that the cost and financial feasibility issues, and again, that's, does tolling pay for the road or not? How are you able to price it to pay for construction? Are you, making the estimates correctly when you're doing the analysis? All of those claims issues. The issue with the SR91 project in terms of the public-private partnership issue, the traffic operations issue, access and egress. The facilities that we've talked about, SR91 is 8 miles long. There's limited entrance and exit, so you actually have some time savings there. And then enforcement, which you raised already. That's a huge issue. I get questions daily from people. Like right now, the big issue is that batteries are dying in the transponder cards, and so that becomes an enforcement issue. Is it collecting tolls? Are they crediting and debiting the accounts properly? And what other technology is available, internationally? So we've looked into some of those issues more recently, and then. So, that part of enforcement, and then also, making sure you catch people. Even recently in one of the journals, on the other end of enforcement, making sure that when people have tickets, whether or not they actually pay them or not. I think there was a guy in New Jersey, they had like $300,000 worth of unpaid tickets. So, you got to actually collect them once they're issued. So, anyway. Some of the projects that have been stalled by political issues, a project in Maryland's been stalled. There was a change in leadership there, and a lot of these have been public issues that have come up. A proposal in Minnesota got derailed. There's a project here in the Puget Sound area, Washington. This was a really interesting one that that just belabored. There's a report that was made to the Washington State Legislature on this, but they had a public-private partnership initiative and a lot of public opposition to several projects that were proposed for tolling, and I think that this was largely public outcry to it. I think out here in the Pacific Northwest, unlike like the East Coast, people are used to tolls. Here, you mentioned tolls, people think toll booth and large backup queues. The technology exists that, you know, you can just go through, you never stop. I like Dr. Dill mentioned, I worked in this region and had the unique opportunity of proposing a feasibility study of tolling all the Willamette River crossings. Needless to say, that didn't get too far off the ground, but that was the big concern, was that, you know, you would be stopping traffic crossing the river into downtown Portland because people thought of toll booths, and I think that was, among other things, one of the major oppositions. Bay Bridge in San Francisco. The Orlando project's actually moving forward, so we can take that off. Let's see. Some of the technical issues that have come up, a lot of these have to do with just mixes with just design issues that have come up, or just putting together the right proposal just was not going to happen. Some of those are listed there. Some of the issues that we've learned is why, you know, in terms of progress, like I said, the public understanding. I think describing the economic issues, describing, you know, why there's benefit is very challenging. Tolling makes good economic sense, but that message is not easy to sell. I think it's hard to package, it's hard to explain. People think they're already getting it, you know, the roads they're already paying for it. Some of the issues about equity, those are very real and you need to address them. There's just general resistance, and it's a big risk to go out there, and you know, politicians are elected and you get beat up. There's several issues around the analytical tools. Some of the modeling tools aren't very good about putting a toll in and how does that divert traffic. You don't know. I think some of the tools in terms of how do we value time? How do you really know how people value, how to put a cost on their time? I moved from this region to Washington, D.C., and I am amazed at how many people will drive an hour and a half each way to work and home. I would never do that. But, you know, people do it every day. The estimating revenue generation when you don't know how many people are actually going to pay, and the traffic diversion, and some of the costs and benefits. Talk about overcoming some of those barriers. Here we go. On the issue of the roads are already paid for. We talk about this here, explaining the costs in the peak hour and making service available, but it's a difficult one to sell. If you folks have ideas, your students and planners, I challenge you on this one. Traffic diversion into neighborhoods. This is very real. Some of the issues here to get around this is, you know, issuing credits and providing some of the management tools and improvements there to discourage that. I think the equity issues can really be addressed, and I'm really encouraged about this. And I'll admit to you, I'm pretty liberal, and I could not work for this program if I didn't believe that this could be addressed. The low-income motorists really do consider it's fair. They use the price lanes. If you have a $20 charge for being late to pick up your children from daycare, and it costs you $5 to get there on time to get in that price lane, you are $15 ahead. And this is really one of the things that we have found repeatedly in some of the surveys, and I was encouraged by that. So, you know, people do value that option to get out of being stuck in traffic if they need to. And then also packaging some of the benefits, providing new service and or toll credits that can be used for any variety of different modes, and or credits for using the regular lanes. There are probably other options too that could be packaged together. We're also like teaming up with, like I said, Bus Rapid Transit earlier. We're working with them to look at opportunities there. Yeah.
How does it work to provide credits to the people in the regular lanes?
It could be done any number of ways. If you instead of getting in that toll lane, if you are in a certain group, and if you were in a certain population group, you could conceivably credit those individuals for sitting in that congested lane. We haven't done it, but you could conceivably devise a mechanism to credit people for that. You could. Again, we haven't done it, but there is a means to do that.
Just understand why.
It's a equity, addressing the equity issue, to address the equity issue. Mm-hmm.
Well, in a sense, aren't you providing a credit in a way to the motorists in the regular lanes, because people who are using the hot lane would be in their lanes if they weren't in the hot lane? So in a sense, the people who are paying are taking a bit of the load off of the regular lane people. So I mean, you're not giving them an actual monetary credit, but you're taking some cars off the road that they would be behind.
Precisely. It's just it's another way, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that is one of the arguments, is that is one of the other benefits that you would promote, is that everyone does benefit in that it relieves congestion in the general purpose lanes as well. So again, the Fairlanes concept is another concept that's being promoted, and that is you know, add a lane and take an existing lane, and then providing high quality transit in fast lanes and crediting vehicles in the general lane. This is what we were just talking about. So this is the same concept that we were just talking about. And then, yeah.
When you look at that picture, doesn't that sort of like imply that the pricing's not quite working right, because there's so much excess capacity that sort of looks like it's not quite working right in that picture.
This is this is a dedicated facility here, and what you're seeing on the reverse lane here, on this side, on the left side, is the reverse commute, and this is not a reversible lane, so you got to ignore that side. But they could clearly let more people in, probably, into the lane. I mean, the lowest fare on this is probably, what, $1, so not enough people are opting in at this particular time. But, well, they could lower it to, what, 50 cents maybe or something. Yeah, that doesn't look good, does it? The biggest thing we were the biggest information need that people were asking for, too, in terms of what they wanted to know, was how much time was it taking on the general purpose lane, so that they could decide whether or not they wanted to get in the price lane or not. That's what people really wanted to know. We found in the survey too. So that was additional information people wanted to know in terms to make the decision about their value of their time. Yeah, what were you going to say? But
I was going to say on the SR91, they only adjust the prices every few months or yearly or something.
They're not dynamically
They're not
priced.
Dynamic.
They're not.
This one
is
is
not a dynamically priced facility.
The
That
I-15
a
is,
problem.
but that
I-15
picture is not.
Yeah. So that would be an improvement to that facility, would be to dynamically price it. They're just doing it in blocks of time based on historical traffic volume data. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any examples where they do provide the information of how long it would take you in the regular all-purpose lane versus the hot lane to go a certain distance or anything?
Are they doing that yet on, I don't know, yeah? Huh?
Well, that was actually my comment is that we saw that slide with a picture of the price, $2 or whatever. I was in Madrid, Spain over the Christmas holiday, and they have signs just right on the highway, and it says like maybe a familiar exit that everybody knows or a major street ahead, you know, and it says the time it's going to take to get to that location.
Yeah,
so when you're coming on the on-ramp, you see that and go, oh, great, I got an hour to get to my location. They don't have toll roads on the highway I was talking about, but it just told people what to expect.
I don't think that they are yet here, but I mean, it's implied by the cost of the toll, but no, I don't think they are yet. And I think that would, personally, I think that, yeah, that would be a good improvement. I mean, people have asked for it, yeah. Again, it's implied by the toll. I mean, the higher the toll on a dynamically priced facility, the longer it's going to take you in the general purpose lane. But no, yeah, the real time
Sometimes you see it with the ITS stuff for like crashes, telling you that something's coming ahead. You should use another route. So it's kind of related to.
And I think that that's another thing that that would be a good improvement. And I think that that's something in the future that.
I don't think they've come up yet with a toll lane that does that, but the technology exists. In fact, even here in this region, we're already collecting that travel time data, so it wouldn't be that difficult to just have a fixed time. Take a freeway, and I'll take 217 as an example, where you could put it at the entrance. Known travel time is 8 minutes. That's fixed mounted, and the changeable variable part would just say at this time it takes you 20 minutes to go from US 26 down to I-5, so you'd have that information.
I noticed they were doing it for buses.
Yeah.
So,
and we have it actually on the auto side, on the variable message signs. And the other thing, Chris, regarding that lane, that actually, the right lane is probably not far from optimal, because if you get them too close together, they're not going to pay to get into a congested environment. They have to pay to get into something that's going to be premier service. Otherwise, you wouldn't go in the lane. Now, in the opposite direction, obviously, it's free flow, and the difference between the toll lane and the free flow lane is virtually nil. So. But in that congested direction, you look at that left lane, there's not a lot of headway between those vehicles, safe to proceed at 60 or 70 miles an hour, whatever the speed limit is there.
Well, it's interesting, too. I have been told that, and I haven't seen it myself, but I've been told that they have observed people in the tolled lanes when the other lanes have been empty, too, which baffles me. But I haven't observed it myself. I've just been told that it occurs, so... Yeah. Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, the loop detectors in the area are set up in pairs to record speed and travel time, but they're not programmed yet to do that. And I think that we're applying for some grant money to actually have that done, so that data can be taken along with the occupancy and other things.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. Sorry, I can't answer that one. But, yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. Okay, talked about, and then fair networks, the difference between the fair lanes is, on the lane, at the lane level, and then this fair networks concept is really looking more at a regional level and at both the highway and like the arterial networks, and doing a pricing mechanism more during the peak in combination with some ITS improvements, kind of what you're talking about in terms of providing for pricing and a congestion-free. There's a paper on our website, which I'll show our website in a minute, that talks about this concept. It's a very interesting My team leader, Patrick DeCorla-Souza, has written a paper that he presented at TRB, several papers actually. It's a very interesting idea, and I would encourage you, particularly as students, to look at this and give it some thought. Okay, so just kind of in conclusion on this, we're kind of encouraging some to incorporate the kind of the pricing into the planning and the project development stages, if areas are considering pricing. And I think that Metro's done that, this region's done that in terms of their policy at looking at it. When they're looking at adding capacity, they've moved in that direction. Not all, and if that's not something you're considering, no. But if you want to do pricing, that is, you need to look at it at the planning level and not further down the line. So that's kind of the thought here. The overcoming public resistance is really key, and when considering pricing, public involvement and packaging, pricing. It's essential to considering tolling. I don't think you can just do this in isolation, and just like imposing tolls is kind of the message here, is what we've learned from our experience in this program. And I think I think we've just learned that in metropolitan planning. We're just not a highway only kind of operation. And then the other thing is that analytical tools are needed in order to look at these things and look at alternatives, and that's pretty consistent with good planning approaches. So we're looking at developing some of those improvements at federal highways for areas to be able to do that analysis. And then here's the information if you want to leave this up on the website or up on the thing here for a while. These sites have some good information. The first site is not a federal highway site. It just has a lot of good information, a lot of links. And then the second site is our website, and then this knowledge.FHWA. This is a community of practice website, and we have information on that site about, there's summaries of all of our projects. There's a lot of really good information. That's the site that also has a paper on the fair networks, and a lot of good information is available at that site as well. And there is, I think you can sign up there too there's a listserv that's pretty informational. So with that, can answer other questions. Yes. I have been out. I've been out of my office for about 2 weeks, so I can't answer anything on. There was amendments on the floor of a House bill yesterday. I can't tell you what's going on with reauthorization. I tried to look up today so I could answer some of those, but there's a couple bills out there floating around. I'll go to conference. So.
Yeah, I noticed that. When I was looking at the pictures of those facilities, that those seem to be rather large facilities. Is there some quantifiable difference in how much land area that is required to build one of these facilities, and what sort of effects would that have on the capital costs of constructing such a facility?
The facilities that were depicted in those pictures, most of those were HOV conversions. So in other words, those were HOV lanes that were converted to hot lanes. So I don't think necessarily, I think there's a great deal of variability there. Most of them are not that long in length, and there's a lot of different ways that areas are approaching it. A lot of areas are just looking when they either add a lane or new capacity, or, like I said, converting an existing HOV lane into a tolling facility. So there are a few issues, of course. I think you probably need to have an area that you're going to get some time savings in order for people to want to opt into it, clearly. So, you'd want to have a length of freeway where you can travel along and get some time savings. There's some other factors that are probably going to be important, but each case is going to be unique and it's going to need to be modeled and be appropriate to the local area. But I don't think there's any set formula for success, and for that, I don't think I could answer that. Like, it needs to be 5 lanes and whatever. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
In terms of just policy, is it feasible to do like a peak time hot lane, the way you have peak time HOV lanes like here, going up over the Interstate 5 bridge?
Mm-hmm.
We have
Most
the
of
peak
them are.
time HOV, but so it could be a general purpose lane, at other
Yeah, you
non-peak
could.
times.
Yeah, you could do that.
Is that something that they look at? Because it seems to me that the HOV lanes, no matter how you look at it,
Right.
are underutilized. And
Yeah, because if people are not going to buy into it, then other times, then it wouldn't make sense to operate it during times that people wouldn't value purchasing into it, right?
I guess what I mean
Yeah.
is it feasible in terms of the whole, constructing
Yeah.
the lane, giving all the administrative costs of the transponders and everything to just do it peak time? Does it wash?
Well, it's expensive to install the technology, so you'd have to, find out if the volume during those operational hours would justify the cost. I mean, you'd have to do the cost-benefit analysis study for that. I mean, it would depend on, how long your peak is and how many cars you're going to get through during that peak. It's very expensive to, you have to install the, the transponders or the readers and all of that. So, but that's when you're getting the majority of the revenue. So, I suspect yes. There are a lot of cases where yes, that's when you're going to operate it. In fact,
The I-15?
the I-15 only operates during.
Because it's reversible, isn't it?
It's
So
reversible,
it goes
so and they're only operating during the. Yeah.
No, you do have a transponder.
You have to
'cause
have
you
a
have to
transponder.
pay, but it's closed.
Yeah.
In the off-peak period, if you have free flow on the other lanes, do
You're
you
not
even
even
need
gonna
the
operate it.
extra capacity
Yeah.
anyway?
Because no one would buy in.
Reduce wear and tear on that facility.
They run it, yeah.
Question if they had an incident like on I-15 in the off-peak, could they open up the hot lane to relieve the flow?
Oh yeah.
But if there's no incident, there really isn't a demand for that extra capacity for
I suppose they could.
off-peak.
The other thing is that you generally need, a lot of times you need like 2 lanes, because you need to keep it free flowing. So if there is an incident, then you either need to have a means to clear it very quickly, or enough shoulder to get it out of the way and keep it going, or people are not going to be real impressed with your reliability. I mean, that's what you're buying, is the reliability, and if you can't provide it, then you're not providing a service. So,
Is there a profile of the revenue over the course of like a 24-hour day on the 91 that shows how many dollars they collect in the peak times, maybe by hour?
One of those 2 facilities, and I get them confused because I'm dealing with both of them all the time. One of them has it virtually by hour on their website, and I think it might be them. I can't remember which one. I might be able to tell you in a minute if I look in this report that one of them does.
Is SR91 still you said the public bought it back, but is it still privately operated, or is it all public now? You know? Because it used to be that a lot of these private facilities wouldn't really release their revenue projections, like the other Orange County toll roads that aren't the hot lanes. They don't release a lot of their revenues because it's private and they're losing money and they don't want people to know.
I haven't had any problem getting it from both of those projects. I think both of them have it on their website, and it's the level of detail that I'm not sure which one. One of them provides very, very detailed level of detail on the website, and the other one, it's just, like annual. And I can't remember which is which. So, but yeah, both of them have, the overall level, the overall information's right on their website. So,
I have a question locally about the issue of taking existing lanes and converting them, and the political infeasibility of that at the current time. For example, on the Banfield between the river and 205, or on Highway 26 from 405 up the tunnel. And one of the reasons why people are wanting to have toll roads on highways is because the cost of maintaining and rebuilding and resurfacing them are so high. Has there ever been a political, not necessarily here, but anywhere, where people have looked at the costs of maintaining the highways to deal with this double pay question? Look at the costs of maintaining the highways and say, well, we're going to create this into a pay road, and the prices we're going to charge are simply to cover costs. Has anybody ever made that argument? Not to pay for transit or to expand, just simply we're going to take out the left lane of the Banfield and make it a hot lane, and the money we reap from this new toll lane will pay for the maintenance of it. So, and then the argument then would say that we will not accept any gas tax for this area because all the funds are going to come from the hot lane.
Have you guys looked at that at all, Charles, in this area? I don't know anybody I personally don't know of anybody that's looked at it in this area. Have you folks looked at it in this area? I know in other areas that's what toll authorities are often created to do, but in this area,
it seems that would deal with the issue of double pay. If they don't accept any gas tax money, that all the maintenance is covered by the hot lane, then you could say, well, we're not double paying you, you're just charging you once for people who use it.
I can just say that in Metro's traffic relief options study, which was their congestion pricing demo initiated under ICE-T, one of the scenarios that they modeled was pricing all lanes of all the regional limited access highways, and assuming that the money would not be pork-barreled away, it would actually be invested wisely. And I believe that included what you're saying, which is backing out gas tax revenue and investing the money for the benefit of the users, and found really high benefits relative to costs, significant speed increases, region-wide speed increases of like 54%. Technically it was a great idea, but Metro has zero political interest at the council level in any of this. So if you go on the website, you can find the study. It's a great study. They hired good consultants. They did good work. And it's, aside from the sort of modest little interest on the 217 study, it's really not much left of it.
I was going to add that I wasn't thinking about taking all 3 lanes of a highway. I was just thinking about making one, because I know the political argument would be then is that, well, if anybody wants to use it, they have to pay for it. They maybe want a couple free lanes left over, so maybe it's a political question, not a feasibility.
Yeah, I'm not aware outside of that. And, in other areas that toll authorities may, operate in that fashion, but outside of that, I'm not personally familiar with anything of that nature.
I was wondering, in areas where this concept is new, how did the public get educated on it? Was there an advertising campaign or something like that to make them become aware?
Yeah, there's a report that University of Minnesota, the Humphreys Institute, put out, and it may be on our website. If it's not, you can contact me and I can get it for you. But they summarized all of the public information efforts that have gone on in, well, not all of them, but the majority of them that have gone on in the various pricing studies, and create a summary document of those efforts. And if you're interested in that, if it's not on that knowledge website that's up there, if it's not on there, I could get a copy for you. But that's the Lee Munich at the Humphreys Institute. Yeah, is it on their website? Is it posted? Yeah, it's a good document. They talk about all the various efforts that went on. So, lots of different things. People have done all sorts of different things around that. So, yeah.
As far as the toll lanes, what's the access like? Is it you get one shot at the beginning, and if not, then you sit in traffic, or are they staggered every 2 miles or every mile, or how's the access on those?
These ones, have you been on these? These ones you just get in and you get off. There's a few of these other projects where there's various proposals. One of them, and I forget which project it is off the top of my head, has a really complicated dynamic pricing scheme where you would. It's going to change throughout, but once you get on, whatever price it told you when you got on is what you're going to pay. But is that the one? Yeah, it's very fascinating. But you can get on and off at different places. But currently those ones you get on and get off. The Katy, when it's constructed, will have some on and off points, but there's just there's so few projects right now, so. I haven't actually been on this on the facility yet, so I haven't been out there. So.
Thank you. And next week we have Dick Feeney. It says TriMet, but I think he's recently retired technically from TriMet.
He's still working for him.
Oh, is he still? Okay.
He's
Talking about how to create a
but...
multimodal transportation system in the 21st century. It should be quite interesting.